In this video, we'll be taking a look at the third golden rule of keyword research, which is competition. Of all the golden rules, this one is perhaps the most important. In fact, the number one reason why people fail online is because they break this rule. So please take the time to watch this video carefully. Specifically, we'll be covering the nature of competition, the two most important aspects of competition, and how to evaluate the competition in your niche using Market Samurai. As you know by now, one of the best ways to obtain a steady stream of traffic to your website is to obtain a front page ranking in Google for particular keyword phrases. The big problem is that there are only 10 listings on the front page of Google for each keyword phrase, and there are often many websites competing for these 10 positions. A good way to understand the nature of competition in the world of internet business is the story of the lion and the two internet marketers. The story goes that there were two internet marketers travelling through the African savannah when they unexpectedly turned a corner and came face to face with a hungry lion. As the lion began to circle them, the first internet marketer sat down on a nearby rock, took off his hiking boots and started putting on a pair of sneakers which he had been carrying in his backpack. The second internet marketer looked puzzled and said, "What are you doing? You'll never be able to outrun a lion." The first internet marketer looked up and replied, "I don't need to outrun the lion, I just need to outrun you." The moral of this story is that in order to obtain a front page ranking in Google, you don't need a perfect website, you just need to be a little bit better than your competition. There are two important aspects of competition that you need to consider. The first is the amount of competition. This gives us an indication of how many people are competing for a particular keyword phrase. As illustrated in this diagram, some keywords have high levels of competition with a lot of people competing for the top 10 spots in Google. Other keywords have low levels of competition with a smaller number of people competing for the top spots in Google. The second aspect of competition that we need to consider is the strength of the competition. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in front of two boxing rings side by side. You've decided that you are going to enter the boxing competition and you have to choose which boxing ring you are going to step into. Luckily, before you make your decision, you have the chance to assess your potential competition. As you investigate the first boxing ring, you discover that if you enter this ring, your competition will be a 270-pound professional fighter. As you investigate the second boxing ring, you discover that if you enter this ring, your competition this time will be a 120-pound novice with no prior experience. The question is, which ring would you decide to climb into? In this analogy, it's quite obvious that you'd have to be crazy to climb into the first ring. However, let's now look at this in terms of internet marketing. The two boxing rings become two different target keywords. For the first keyword, the top 10 spots in Google are dominated by professional, highly optimized websites that have been around for over 10 years and have hundreds of pages of high-quality content and thousands of backlinks. For the second keyword phrase, the top 10 spots in Google include simple websites that have not been optimized, are relatively new, and only have one or two backlinks. Clearly, you should target the keyword phrase that is less competitive because you'll have a much better chance to obtain a front page listing in Google, which will lead to a steady stream of traffic and hopefully a steady stream of sales. In our experience, the number one reason why people fail online is that they never take the time to assess the level and strength of the competition associated with the keywords they are targeting. Instead, they just climb into a niche market blindly and start creating content. They then hope that Google will somehow find their site and magically give them a front page ranking. Unfortunately, this rarely happens. The really sad part is that many people work extremely hard to build a great website but still receive little or no traffic because they've entered a very competitive niche and the competition is simply too strong. The real secret to success online is to learn to pick your battles carefully and only target keywords for which you have a good chance of achieving a front page ranking. If you take this on board and assess the competition associated with your target keywords before you create your online business, you can save yourself months and even years of hard work and frustration. Now let's cross over to Market Samurai and take a look at how to assess the amount and strength of the competition in the real world. In this example, I'm exploring the dog training niche, and as you can see, I currently have my SEO traffic, PBR and trends information showing. In order to assess the amount of competition in this niche, all I have to do is go up to the competition area and click the SEO competition checkbox. Market Samurai then displays an empty column with the title SEOC. In order to retrieve my SEO competition data, all I need to do is come up here and click the Analyze Keywords button. Market Samurai then goes out to the internet and gathers the data I need to assess the competition that exists for each of my keyword phrases. The SEOC values that come back show me the total number of web pages that mention the associated keyword phrase in the same word order. Now that I have my SEOC data, I can apply a competition filter. This allows me to filter out the high competition phrases and zero in on the more accessible keywords. At Noble Samurai, we recommend that if you're just starting out, you should use a competition filter of 30,000 to identify phrases that have acceptable levels of competition. So, I'll just come up here and click the plus sign next to the SEOC field and enter a value of 30,000 and click the Refresh Filters button. By using a competition filter, I've now identified keyword phrases that have less than 30,000 competing web pages. But we're not done yet. You'll remember that there were two important aspects of competition. The first was the amount of competition, and the second was the strength of competition. These SEOC values describe the amount of competition, but they do not say anything about the strength of the competition that exists for each of these keyword phrases. In order to assess the strength of my competition, I need to make use of one of Market Samurai's most powerful modules, the SEO competition module. Let's take a look at an example. Looking through my list of keywords, let's say that I'd like to assess the strength of competition that exists for the phrase puppy obedience training. To do this, what I can do is come across here and click on the key icon. This will create a new tab at the top of the screen with puppy obedience training as my new seed keyword. To change focus, I'll just click on this tab, and now to access the SEO competition module, I'll just come down here and click the SEO competition button. Then to generate my SEO competition matrix, all I have to do is come across here and click the Generate Results button. Market Samurai then conducts a real-time SEO analysis of the top 10 websites in Google for the phrase puppy obedience training. Don't worry if this matrix seems a little confusing at first. In a future video, I'll be explaining each column in detail. For now, I'll just describe the simplest way to use the matrix. What we've done is to color code the SEO matrix to give you an easy way to conduct a quick visual assessment of the strength of the competition associated with a keyword phrase. The more green squares there are in the matrix, the weaker the competition and the more accessible the keyword. Orange squares indicate a higher strength of competition, and red squares indicate a strong level of competition. Here's an example that will show you exactly what I mean. This first SEO matrix relates to the keyword dogs, and as you can see by the large number of red cells, the top 10 websites in Google for this keyword are all very strong competitors. The second SEO matrix relates to the keyword phrase puppy obedience training. This matrix is a lot less red and a lot more orange and green. This means that the competition for the top 10 spots in Google associated with this keyword is not as strong. I'd therefore have a much better chance of gaining a front page ranking if I targeted the phrase puppy obedience training than if I targeted the keyword dogs. As I mentioned, I'll be discussing the SEO matrix in a lot more detail in a future video. In this video, we discussed the nature of competition in internet marketing. We saw that the number one reason why people fail online is that they do not take the time to assess the level of competition associated with their target keywords. Next, we identified that it's important to assess both the amount of competition and the strength of competition before deciding on which keyword phrases to target. And finally, we looked at how to assess the amount of competition and the strength of competition using Market Samurai.